Welcome back to Minority Voices. I'm Lola Thompson. If you're just joining us today, we have in the studio Diane Taylor with Taylor Made Publishing, who is giving us her story, her message, and her mission, and talking about some of the great things that have happened in her life. A testimony that launched a career for her, a power of a connection, and so Diane, before the break, we were talking about self-publishing versus a publishing company, right? So let's go back and kind of rewind if we just had somebody to join us to kind of bring them up to speed on that.
Absolutely. When an individual has a complete manuscript or a story to tell that is already written, there's two ways that you can publish that story. You can either self-publish or you could submit it to a publishing company. Well, when you self-publish, the difference is that you maintain ownership of your work. That means nobody can change your title, nobody can change your content, not without you either paying them and or knowing what's going on. So self-publishing maintains the ownership, but it also means you're responsible for the marketing, which sometimes can be an uphill battle for self-published authors. Self-published authors have a very difficult time getting into bookstores and other things like that. So there's some challenges, but there's also some benefit in the fact that you maintain the ownership of your work. You can also go through a traditional publishing company, which we also offer. And when you go through a traditional publishing company, that means you submit your work to a publisher, and you are basically asking them if they would like to publish your work under their umbrella. And when they do that, when they accept your work, hopefully they will, then they have the ownership of that work. So the downside is that you lose ownership of your story. Hopefully you choose somebody that has integrity and wouldn't change those things without working with you. That's one of the main missions that I have, is to uphold the integrity of our company and the authors. However, that also means that a publishing company is vested in the story. So that means they're going to push it. They're going to market it. They're going to make sure that it's out there and that it's selling because they need to or want to recuperate their investment. So those are the two different ways that you can publish. You can either self-publish or you can go through a traditional publishing company.
And that's good to know, because if you're like me, I feel like I realized, I went to ECU and I realized one of my professors was saying that we have a voice, and our voice needs to be heard because, he was saying that we have a story, and you need to write your story. Because I used to say, I don't like to write, I'm not a good writer. But I heard what he said, and I really realized, because I came up during the time when they integrated, we were the first high school class to integrate Rose High School, and I wanted to share that story with people, but I never did. And I thought nobody really wants to hear it. But when I went to that class and started hearing the power of your voice, the power of that small voice, and that's what I like about this program, Jim Rouse Minority Voices, that the smaller voice can be heard and it can be magnified through this program. And I thank God for people like you that would step out and would help people to get their voices heard through writing, So what would you say to a person that may be out there that has a story but don't know how to get it started?
Absolutely. Well, one of our mottos is that everyday people have extraordinary stories. I do truly believe that we all have at least one book within us. I believe that wholeheartedly. And I also believe that we have a mandatory mission to tell it.
Okay.
And there used to be a time when our communities would sit around on Sunday afternoons and talk to each other, and you'd hear about Grandma and how she grew up or what she went through. But we don't necessarily communicate the same way that we once did. And because of that, we're losing a whole lot of our history. And so I always suggest to people that even if you're not sure if you're going to publish a story, write the story. Because it's not just for you. It's for your children's children's children. It is a legacy that you are leaving them. So writing a book, in my opinion, everybody should do at least once. At least once.
And with computers now where you can save things, and what I've started doing is, as I get thoughts, little droplets send me, maybe a title or something, and one title was "Loving the Skin That You're In," because I found myself fighting against me so much, because you hear so many other people hate you. You start self-destructing. So I had to learn to love the skin that I was in. So I put that down. I was like, that sounds like a title to, a chapter or something. So I put that in my computer and saved it, on the Word file, and then I wrote other ones, and now, I have write many chapters, even though they're not filled in. I have the chapters, and it's a starting place, to at least put the voice down. What else can you say to us to get us encouraged to write our stories?
Well, I don't want us to live in fear. I think there's a lot of intricate pieces to writing a book and to publishing it. And I think sometimes it can be so overwhelming that we don't do it. And so I always tell people to stop asking the questions about what will happen if no publisher wants my story. Well, you'll never get to that point if you don't write the story. So I always tell them, just write.
Okay.
Everything else will happen after the fact. Just because you write a story doesn't mean you'll publish it. But we'll never know until you at least write it. So I always encourage people that no matter what, just write. Just get it down, get it out of your spirit and onto paper, hopefully electronically, but just write.
And another thing, sometimes people, and I don't know much about publishing, but I do know that people feel like, well, I don't have much to write about. And so they don't write. But I had a boss who was a vice chancellor of the university who wrote a book, and the book was very thin. I don't know if it was 60-some pages, but he wrote it. And I thought, well, if he can write this, in a smaller, version, I can do this too. It doesn't have to be 200 pages or 300 pages. What is your thoughts?
Absolutely, but I do think it needs to be good.
Okay,
Yes,
yes.
but we tell people, truthfully, you should aim more for words than pages. So my suggestion is that we always concentrate on the topic and what you want a reader to get from that. So that's where you start. So you start from, man, do I have a story to tell? And then you need to visualize, why does someone need to hear this particular story?
All right, good things to learn. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.